if I want to change my reality, I'm going to use this symbol in my mind's eye to imprint upon the situation. It shifts a situation into a much higher state instantaneously.
You are listening to Personal Development Mastery, the podcast that empowers you with the simple and consistent actions you need to create a life of purpose and fulfillment. I'm your host, Agi Keramidas, and this is episode 388. Do you often see the infinity symbol around you, which can be either flat or upright, looking like an 8? Today we discuss the concept of the infinity wave and how embracing this symbol of love and compassion can support personal and spiritual transformation. By listening to this episode, you will learn what the infinity wave is and where it comes from. You will discover practical applications of the infinity wave to enhance daily life, such as improving communication and reducing stress. And you will also gain insights into embracing change and having a fluid response to change. The infinity wave is a tool that, according to my guest today, when used correctly, it can transform your reality. Before we dive into this powerful and transformative message, if you enjoy listening and appreciate what we're doing here, the simple, quick favor I'm asking of you is to click the subscribe button. Now let's get started. Today it is my pleasure to speak with Hope Fitzgerald. Hope, you are a spiritual teacher, visionary speaker, coach, and author of the book The Infinity Wave. You have over 30 years of experience in intuitive dowsing, energy healing, and spiritual coaching. You are passionate about sharing the transformative power of the infinity wave, and you have dedicated your life to empowering individuals to break free from limitations and embody a higher state of consciousness. Hope, what a pleasure it is to speak with you today.
Thank you so much. I'm overjoyed to be here.
So am I. Hope today we will explore, among other things, the infinity wave, which I mentioned briefly in the introduction, but also energy healing, dowsing, and more. See where it takes us, really. Before we go there, what I would like to start with is asking you how you first encountered the infinity wave. So give me a brief overview of that time, what was happening in your life and what happened then.
Well, it's kind of a common theme that when people go through a very difficult time, there's a change and sometimes a gift waiting on the other side, depending on how you go through that difficult time. And I went through a very difficult time in 2010 with a lot of traumatic events. Towards the fall, I realized that I was on absolute zero, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And that is a dangerous time. That's when you become vulnerable to disease and all kinds of things. So I went off to back-to-back sound healing workshops with a wonderful man named Tom Kenyon. And it turns out that what I was doing, when I look back on it now, I didn't know it at the time. I was just going for it, It was a shamanic initiation. If I had to choose words for it, I got into sync with him and his teaching and his incredible ability to channel a wide range of beings through his music, through his sound, his voice. And by the end of the thing, I was restored. More importantly, I had come to some understanding about what that prior year had been about, not just that year, but really my whole life, the programming. And I had been on a quest during these retreats to clean out. I always say clean my inner bowl. Like I scrubbed this big bowl that was in my being, so that I had no story anymore. And by the end of it, the very, very last practice, I had one remaining question that had to do with why these dramatic events were coming to me when I'm pretty sensitive, Anyway, I got my answer in the last practice, and it was so stunning, such a beautiful reframe, brought me into such gratitude that in my mind's eye, and I didn't do this in physicality, I went prostrate on the floor, and out of me sprang these words: I am a willing vessel, do with me what you will. Now, these were not words that I was used to saying. They just came out internally. That was the degree of my gratitude for the understanding that I had received. I went home. I felt delightfully empty. You could have called me any name. I would have answered. I had no story anymore. It was incredible. It was so freeing and delightful. And then on the third day, I was walking across my living room. My dear friend was visiting. And all of a sudden, I'm staring at a giant wave. Beautiful 10-story, huge turquoise wave. And there seemed to be a little byline with that. And it said, paraphrasing, this wave represents a push of evolution that is coming to the planet and will anchor in at the end of 2011. If you choose to swim with it or surf it, it will be much better than if you resist. Okay? Then the wave turned to the side. So now it looked like a surfer would come through the barrel. It was kind of like a letter C hanging like this, big wave like that. And that one had a byline too. And it was, as the ocean pulls away from the shore and deepens into the seabed to get its energy to create the crest. That's how the physics of a wave works. Mm-hmm. So should you leave all your book learning, your so-called knowledge on the shore. Go to the earth, go to the wisdom keepers of the earth for your information, for your knowledge. And mix that with this incoming wave push thing. Then, instead of the water falling right back down to the ocean like it would normally do, it turned into this figure 8 made of flowing water. Now, I can show a picture of it if you like, but it's, there was no byline with this. And it was hanging out in front of my consciousness about 18 inches. It was about this high. And it just was like a clear thing that was in my daily life for about 3 days until I sat down with my dowsing rods to say, okay, this is getting annoying. What is this thing? And that started the inquiry into what this was. Mm-hmm. And that it's a symbol. It's a geometry that is important. The geometry itself is important. The water is important. We could call it the infinity wave, but it represents an energy that is extremely pristine. I was told 10th dimensional energy that was here to help us with the times that we're ahead. Mm-hmm. This push of evolution. Mm-hmm. That if we could stay in the consciousness of this figure 8 thing made of water, this infinity wave, that things would go better for us. And it was further explained that inherent in that water was this 10th dimensional level of love and compassion. So that's what the early days were about. And then I'll tell one more thing and then I'll stop. Because then I was told through the dowsing, through my guides who I'd been working with for many, many years, oh, I'm supposed to teach about this starting in January 2011, which I said, no, I don't want to do that. And they said, don't you remember you said you were a willing vessel and do with you what you will? Yes. And I'll stop there.
Actually, thank you for this beautiful story. Actually, that part where you said I am the willing vessel, you mentioned this immense gratitude that you felt. The word that came to my mind was the word surrender. Surrender
Totally.
to the divine, to the universe. You also used the word when you were speaking about that shamanic initiation, I think you called it. You used the word you were restored. And I liked very much that choice of word. So, yeah, just I mentioned that because it was something that really caught my attention. What I want to ask next is actually I'm now very fascinated with your description of the infinity wave, and you said that it is a kind of energy or a wave that we should swim with it, you said, or surf it rather than fighting it. So can you tell me a bit about how it helps us, as you said that it does, and obviously this metaphor of surfing or swimming it is nice to hear, but more practically, how can one swim an energy wave that most of us are not, at least, we can't sense it in a visible way, the way that you did?
Well, the initial image of this giant wave pushing forward was the sense of it was this is coming and you have choices about how to respond. So when the initial message was to be fluid and not to resist, because if you're at the beach and you resist a wave, you're going to get knocked down. So you have to learn a more fluid response to the changes that are coming. Now, in 2010, of course, we had no idea what would be happening. And of course, in the last 5 years, we've had quite a bit of change to deal with. And it's not stopping. It's moving faster than ever. So may I show a picture of the wave for people?
Absolutely.
Okay. So just to get a visual of it, it's just easier to show it in this large form. This geometry of the water in the figure eight, and it can go either way. It's just how this is pictured in this on the book. But what the wave helps us to do is to stay in that flow state. It reminds us to stay flexible, to not become rigid. When people encounter change, especially big change, their first instinct is to hold tight, is to grip, hold your breath, right? And there are people, millions of people right now who have still not come out of that frozen state after everything they've been through. They're still in a state of shock and kind of like a deer in headlights. They're going through their daily lives, but they're not the same. Mm-hmm. There's a kind of a locked up part of them. Maybe everything's going to go back to normal someday, which it isn't. And so what this figure eight made of flowing water is a metaphor, but it's also practical. So we know that thought creates reality, right? We know this. So we know we are also mostly water, right? We're depending on how old we are, between 80 and 98% water. So we also know that water has memory, and we know that water has consciousness. This has been proven now multiple times by different researchers around the world. So we have this watery shape as a means of communication. And within that water, this particular shape, this particular water, is this high level of love and compassion. It's built into the symbol. It's built into the water. So if I want to change my reality, I'm going to use this symbol in my mind's eye to imprint upon the situation and see what happens. What I'm doing is I'm sending 10th dimensional love and compassion that is not from me. It's in the symbol, and I'm putting it on a situation. And if I hadn't seen it and hadn't heard other people describe it for all these years, I wouldn't have believed it. But I'm telling you that it shifts a situation into a much higher state instantaneously. And I can give you an example.
If you enjoy this episode, can you think of one person that would find it useful and share it with them? I'd really appreciate it. It helps the show grow, and you will also be adding value to people you care about. Thank you. And now let's get back to the episode.
And I can give you an example.
Please do, yes. And then I wanted to ask something, but I would like to hear your example first.
Okay. So this is something that happened at the very end of 2011, after I had followed my instructions to teach these workshops. I taught one full workshop, as I doused it out, was 1 weekend per month for 3 months. So 3 months, 1 weekend per month. And going into it, I had no idea what I was teaching. I had no idea what I was doing. I was looking everywhere on the internet for the infinity sign. Is anybody, and this is getting back to you a little bit, because I can't be the only one receiving this. Am I going crazy? Thought I was going crazy. Really, you're asking me to do something that takes me way out of my comfort zone, even though I've been a teacher, even though I've been a performer, even though I've been a director. When you ask me to teach something that is in the realm of spirituality and spiritual evolution, hello, no, thank you. I'd rather sit quietly in the back of the room. Also, because I always and still do consider myself a student. And once you get in the front of the room, then all kinds of projections and sticky stuff. I didn't want to go for it. But they were pushing me literally foot in the back. And so ahead I went. Each week before the weekend workshop, I received a download. I got these practices would come through me. I had not been a fan of channeling, but all of a sudden here I am channeling. And these beautiful practices dropped in. When I got to the end of the first full workshop and I looked back, I realized that step by step by step, these 9 practices that came in were like a blueprint for a spiritual leap. Evolutionary leap. And everybody who had gone through the program was demonstrating that. I repeated that 2 more times that year. At the end of the year, I went with a close friend of mine out to LA to do a very serious surgery that was required for her neck and all kinds of things. Anyway, she had prepared for surgery by doing hypnosis for surgery. And one of the things they do is they say, write out on a piece of paper what you want the anesthesiologist to say as you go under and come out for better outcomes. So she had that. We're waiting and waiting. We're about to go into surgery. She's all in her cap and gown, ready to go. And finally in comes the anesthesiologist. Now, this woman who came in, middle-aged, clipboard in hand, she had on a very interesting surgical cap. It looked like a little pizza hat, kind of puffed out. Never seen anything like it. Little flecks on it. Anyway, she stood opposite me at the foot of the bed. Never looked at my friend, reading off her clipboard. Okay, we're working on C3 and C4, and blah, 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 all this medicalese. And I could see that my friend was getting agitated because she wanted to hand this paper off. And this did not look like a human being who would accept this paper and let her, have these better outcomes. So I, having worked with the wave all year long, I found myself in a completely new position because I'd been learning and evolving through this whole process as well. Normally I would have said, hey, would you mind just being nice to my friend? I would have done something. But instead, I thought, oh, I don't like this picture. I want a different one. And at that moment, I said, I like your hat. Very bland, no intonation. But out of my solar plexus was like a punch. Boom. and the wave popped out of me. I didn't direct it. I just said I want a different picture. And the woman's head popped up. She looked at my friend. She said, "Hey, babe, how are you doing today? I want to help you. Oh, what do you have for me? Oh, you want me to say this? I love to do this kind of." And she went from an icebox to chatty Cathy in a nanosecond. And both my friend and I were like, we could not believe it. Mm-hmm. My friend didn't know what had happened, but after she came out of, her anesthesia and everything, she said, "Did you see what happened to that anesthesiologist?" She was like, I was about ready to call for a different doctor. And all of a sudden she was wonderful. So how I explain it is that the wave can bring about a sense of peace, calm, balance, masculine, feminine, all the things. Mm-hmm. But it also can pack a punch when necessary, and it has a mind of its own. So all I had to do was ask for something different, and reality changed in a nanosecond.
Of course, it can pack a punch. It is a wave. it can certainly do that. Thank you. That was I enjoyed listening to it. It's very impressive. The question I wanted to ask you earlier on was you used the words, use this symbol to imprint on the situation. So when you said that, in my mind, the word I would use, or the description I would use, as I understand what you said, was in our mind's eye to superimpose, shall we say, this symbol on whatever is happening around us, or in other words, to bring it into our mind's eye. Is that what you mean? Did I understand that correctly?
Yes. So another example. Yes. So here's what we do. The wave has 1,001,000,001 uses. Okay. Mm-hmm. It's a living energy. So for instance, if I want to have a better conversation with someone, let's say I'm having a difficult conversation with my teenage son, which happened to me years ago. And he's getting more and more agitated. And usually what happens is when somebody else is getting agitated, or we hook onto that energy and we get agitated, and you know how it goes, builds up. Mm-hmm. Now, instead of hooking into his agitation, I started to wave him. So that means I would there are lots of ways to do it, but I would put one end of the loop of the figure eight in my heart, and I would send it across to his heart. And now I've got the wave running between us. And I could literally sit there, say nothing, because I like to test it. As a scientist, I like to test it. Say nothing and watch him decompress. And the next thing I know, a minute or two later, he's kind of joking and he didn't go off the deep end. So that's one example. But you can also send the wave to somebody, either in your presence or at a distance. Just imagine them wrapped from head to toe in the wave. And time and space don't matter with this. Everything starts to reorient for their highest good. It takes where they are in 3D and it adds the element of 10D. Now, that doesn't mean they go to 10D. It just means that it lifts them up and out of only being locked in 3D. It opens the aperture. So when you open the aperture, you allow for much more magic to happen, much more. You don't even have to know in your mind. This is what I love about it, because I think intention is awesome, and I don't poo-poo it. At the same time, I could not have imagined that doctor's response. It was way more than my little mind could have figured out. Yes. And so it leaves, the wave leaves space for the highest and best to occur. Does that help?
Yes, it does. I will take it one step further. So let's say now someone listening is really fascinated with the concept that you just described, and they want to put it into practice or put it into test, just to to see what would happen. Can you offer something additional as a practical thing that one can do to
Sure.
Implement it and put it to the test, if that phrase is
Sure.
accurate?
Yeah. I love it because I spent a lot of time putting it to the test. Trust me, I still put it to the test. You can use it in your own body. So a lot of times people have a hard time falling asleep, or they wake up in the night and they can't fall back to sleep. I recommend a practice that came to me called the Infinity Cradle. And that is, you wrap it from your crown across your midline, down around your feet, and back up. We have the capacity to turn the water up or down in terms of flow. So you can imagine just a lovely little trickling stream of the wave. You're introducing it, you're imprinting it into your field, you're inviting the dance with the infinity wave. And if you just imagine it, and you can use your hands to trace it, you can also do it on your heart like this. It tends to make your heart start to feel softer, wider, more vulnerable. So those are just two little ways to use it in the body. If you're in traffic and you find yourself getting agitated, which we all do, you can wave the traffic in front of you. Wave it from your heart out. Two things happen, and this is one of the most beautiful things about the wave. Whatever you send out is coming back to you. So your being is shifting into a higher place just by running the wave on the traffic. And this is dowsable. You can douse a person. When we wave somebody who doesn't know what the wave is, 30 seconds of a small group waving that person, I douse their energy field before and after. After 30 seconds of waving that person with nobody knowing what a watery figure eight is, their energy field has tripled in size. I've tested this over and over and over. So when you're waving traffic, your own field is going to be expanding. The traffic will start to move, and you will be in a better, more calm state while the traffic is sorting itself out. We have choices about how we respond to the many situations that life offers us. If we're able to stay in a flow state, and you could say that staying in a state of love and compassion equals a flow state, then usually things start to go better for us. Travel goes better. Everything goes better. So this is just a symbol to remind us about our capacity to stay in that state. Now, one little caveat, and I mentioned this before, the love and compassion at this pristine level that we really mostly can't access on this planet, in this 3D realm, is built in to the water. So we don't have to manufacture that in ourselves. If we did, we'd have to go to our cave, we'd have to meditate, we'd have to get our vibrations up, we'd have to do all that stuff. We don't have time to do that anymore. We need something fast, something that keeps us in a state as much as we think of it. And the more we think of it, the more we stay in that state until the point where we are automatically just in that state. Mm-hmm. So I tell people, go to my website and cut the thing out, print it out, cut it out, put it all over, put it in your bathroom, put it in your car. And just as a reminder to stay in a flow state, because life will bring you much more when you do.
Hope, thank you for this description of how to use it. I earlier on there was this element in my own way of explaining it, was that I have to use my imagination, and you also said that you can use your hand, and that also, I believe, that also makes it even more tangible and practical. I will make one more comment now because you were saying, and we were discussing just before we started recording about the symbol of infinity, which is like sideways the number 8. And I was showing you my book, which has 88. It has 2 of them on the title. And you asked me how I came to that number, and I said it just came to me, just appeared to me. So I don't know if you wanted to add something. We started that conversation there, but yeah, maybe now that we've had all these other things that we said, I'd love to hear what you think.
Well, as I mentioned, I looked all throughout 2011 for the symbol of the 8 or the infinity on packaging, in logos, in jewelry, and it was nowhere to be found. And I know that's hard to imagine right now because it is everywhere now. But they had said it's going to anchor in at the end of 2011. So January, first week of January, I went to order a cappuccino, and it was handed to me, and someone had put the infinity in the foam. And that started the whole thing. And then it was spray painted on a sidewalk, and then it was in a logo, and then it just started to come in. And we had been told that we were going to have a whole year to work with this before, it hit us. And then I started to see it in the collective. So many people have now used it as their logo. They don't know why. You don't know why 88 came to you. I've had a lot of channeling that has happened in the last 12, 13 years, whatever it is. Because once I started receiving these practices, I realized, okay, this is something else going on. And so I've had conversations like we all can. Okay, I'm not special. It's just I put in my 10,000 hours, I guess. And one day I was sitting down and Creator came in and talked to me. And I was seeking, what is a unifying principle? What is it that can tie this whole thing together? And Creator presented me with a massive figure 8 on its side, like a tray. And now we have to be sure to understand that where the cross happens, they don't touch. There, so that it's always flowing, right? So we have here expansion, contraction. We have all kinds of things inherent in that design, but the water never stops, all right? So Creator shows me a big infinity that's black on its side like this. And all of history, all of humanity, everything that has happened that we don't even know anymore is rotating on this giant infinity. And I said, can it be that simple? And Creator said, everybody's looking for complication. Yes, it's that simple. So I don't, it's funny, I've listened to other people, other, researchers and this and that who are considered, worth listening to. And they come in and they say, there's something about this infinity thing. There's something about the figure 8. And I'm like, yes, I know. So I think my opinion is you received this imprint that is a big piece of our understanding of how things work. And I can't say I totally understand it, but you received it. And so it has meaning.
Indeed. And I will repeat 2 words that you said with this answer, was the unifying principle. I think that's how you call it, unifying principle. So that resonated with me. Hope, where will you direct the listener who is completely fascinated now with what you have shared?
Well, I think the best thing to do is to go to my website, which is spreadinfinitehope.com. I'm also on Facebook under that same name and Instagram and all that stuff. I would invite people, and I know that you might have mostly a European audience, but I offer free meditations every Monday. They're channeled meditations. And I have a library of them. I started them during the lockdown time as a way to help people. I didn't know what I was doing, but it all evolved. And we've had wonderful masters who have come and taught us as a collective. So I invite people to check those out. And I write a weekly blog as well. So come and join us.
Beautiful. Hope, before we wrap up today, there are two quick questions that I always ask my guests. The first one is, what does personal development mean to you?
Oh, it's been a hallmark of my life. I started very young. I'm still going. And to me, we enter with nothing. We leave with nothing except a polished soul. So it's an ongoing process. It means everything.
And a hypothetical question. If you could go back in time and meet your 18-year-old self, what's one piece of advice you would give her?
Oh my gosh. Don't worry about what other people think. Be confident. Be confident. I had a long history of problems with confidence. And I would tell her to just jump over that hurdle right away.
Hope, I want to thank you very much for this captivating conversation. There were many elements that I personally picked, not at simply the level of words, but there was something I think underlined which I picked, and I hope that if you are listening right now, you have also picked on that. I want to wish you all the very best with your mission and spreading this powerful knowledge and message to the world. And I will leave it to you for some actionable parting wisdom.
Well, I like to say stay wavy, because with every person who even uses a different tool, but if we use our tools to stay in love and compassion, we can know not only are we evolving our own souls, but we are impacting those around us. And so it's so important to do this. It's so important. And it's fun. It's joyful. It doesn't have to be heavy. So that's what I would leave you with.
And before I end today's episode, if you enjoy this podcast, can you think of one person that would find it useful and share it with them? I'd really appreciate it. It helps the show grow, and you also add value to people you care about. Thank you. And until next time, stand out, don't fit in,